Cool. We're going to be spending the next 4 weeks leading up to the summer talking about one of Jesus' most famous stories, parables. And it's one that we call the Prodigal Son. And it's a great story. It's a powerful story. It's an important story. And I'm sure that we all have some general understanding of what the story is about. I think it's kind of like the Good Samaritan. It's seeped into our consciousness. It's kind of become part of our culture, where even just in modern vernacular, people refer to others as prodigals, prodigal sons. They'll use that to describe certain types of people in certain types of situations, and so it's become just sort of commonplace and understanding of that story. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes when a story is so well known, it kind of works against it because we just operate under this kind of general working understanding of the story, and we settle for that, and we don't necessarily go deeper into what it really means and what's being said. And so I would like to take this month as a chance to delve into it more deeply and really kind of mine it for what Jesus is saying. I mean, I can't imagine a more important story. Jesus himself is describing his Father and his Father's heart and his perspective. And so this is incredibly important to listen to and to allow to capture our hearts. And so it'll be good. So this will be an introduction today. So we're actually not even going to get to the story. And we're gonna do a little bit of context, a little bit of setting the table before we delve into the story starting next week. But I want to read the lead-in. And this is found in Luke 15. This is where the stories are. Of course, Prodigal Son's part of a trilogy of stories. But this is the lead-in. This is kind of why Jesus goes off on these stories. And so this is Luke chapter 15, verses 1 through 3. This is what it says. All the tax collectors and the sinners were coming near Jesus to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes began to grumble, saying, "This man receives sinners and he eats with them." And so he told them this parable, and then he told them 2 more parables. And so he tells 3. So the rest of this chapter, Luke 15, all of it, is 28 verses. So it's not like a very short book or chapter of the Bible. Jesus is spending responding to this criticism, the fact that he receives sinners and he eats with them. And so his response to that criticism is a trilogy of stories, all having to do with something being lost, that something being found, and then a party, a banquet, a feast is thrown because it was found. So we have the story of a lost sheep, a lost coin, and then the lost son, which is what we call the prodigal son. And so that's the crescendo at the end of this explanation. So before we get to these stories, and the criticism that prompted these stories here in Luke 15, I'd like to back up one chapter. And we're going to go to Luke 14 today. And I believe that Jesus also is telling parables. He's on a run, like he's on a roll here. So he's just parable. It's story time with Jesus. And so pull up a carpet square, sit crisscross applesauce, get your juice box ready. We're going to listen to story time with Jesus. And so he's telling all these stories. And so I believe that what he talks about in the previous chapter can and should prepare our hearts to receive and understand and to really internalize what's about to be said in Luke 15. So I think it's meant to help prepare our hearts and our perspective what happens in the previous chapter. So let's go back there. So Luke 14 starts with, it is Jesus. He is on his way to Jerusalem. So he's making his way, and that's where, when I say he's making his way to Jerusalem, this is the end of the story. So he is the triumphal entry that we celebrate on Palm Sunday, his movement towards the cross, the crucifixion, all that. He is on his way there. So he is traveling, he's ministering in small towns, he's basically sharing the good news with anyone that would listen. And so he is on his journey, his way there. It is the Sabbath day. And so he is in the previous chapter, we see him in the temple, which would be the last time he's in the temple. And so through the Sabbath day, and then on Sabbath day, he is at this point in the beginning of chapter 14, he is in the leader of the Pharisees' house, receiving bread with the folks there. And so he is in a very, it's funny that we've become more comfortable seeing Jesus in a setting of blatant outed sinners, and it's weird for us to see him in a setting with religious people. It's like, that's awkward. I would like to see that. I'd like to be a fly on that wall, which is so backwards from the way that we treat Christianity nowadays. Nowadays, it's like we get uncomfortable around sinners. We're like, oh, they need to button up, and it's like, no, it was weird for Jesus to be around religious folks. And so, but he's eating bread with some folks. He's eating some ciabatta or something like that, maybe not. But he's hanging out with them with some sourdough. And so he's talking to them, and a man wanders into the scene. Some historians believe that he was a plant. Some historians believe that he was actually prompted to walk through the scene just to trap Jesus. Whether that's the case or not, we get the same exact result. So a man wanders into the scene, and the Bible says that he is suffering from dropsy. Now, dropsy is a disorder when you can't really hold on to your keys and your stuff. You drop everything. I'm kidding. So that's not it at all. Dropsy is a dated reference. I think I have dropsy. I dropsy everything. It's a dated reference to a modern ailment. It's actually something that still plagues us. It would be edema now, which would be fluid, causing swelling in your tissues and so in your extremities, and so a lot of times caused by heart failure, kidney disease, liver disease, that sort of thing. So it would be edema now, modern day, and so this person is suffering from that. And all eyes are on Jesus because he's known to be someone who is sick and who is suffering. And so they turn to Jesus to watch what he'll do because it is the Sabbath. And I think the religious folks at this point, he just healed a woman on the Sabbath. In the previous chapter, he just healed somebody. And so it was a big deal, big to-do, big controversy. And they're like, are you going to heal this guy on the Sabbath? And so it's kind of a trap situation. And so Jesus, before he heals the man, he turns to them and says, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? They said nothing. Absolute silence. And so he answers the question just by doing it. He's like, I'll show you. Heals the guy and then sends the man on his way. And then he turns to the religious folks and he says this, which one of you would have a son or an ox and that son or the ox fell into a well and would not immediately pull them out if it was the Sabbath day? And so, again, no response. You could hear crickets. They don't want to say anything to incriminate themselves. They're pleading the fifth. They're just letting Jesus kind of hang himself out to dry in this situation. And so, but you notice in that response that they are kind of comparing the significance, the importance of a son and livestock. In the previous chapter, we have something similar where he heals a woman and everyone's up in arms about it. And he said, listen, if you had a donkey tied up on the Sabbath and that donkey needed water, you would take care of the donkey. And so basically he's exposing our misplaced affections and importances. It's like your religious sensibilities have made you more sympathetic towards livestock than human beings, which if you take a step back, is kind of what religion does. Religion dehumanizes people. Religion makes rules here and people here. And in fact, Jesus made a point. He said, listen, The Sabbath, for existence. The Sabbath isn't made to make you serve it. It's made to serve you. It's not you doing the Sabbath for the Sabbath's benefit. The Sabbath is for your benefit because you're the priority. And so this has gotten, religion flips it backwards, flips it upside down. And so he is exposing that comparison. Now, this is foreshadowing because in the story of the lost sheep, he is comparing a lost sheep and the importance of that to later on the lost son. And so this is a little bit of foreshadowing in the future following parables. Now, while seated at this gathering, Jesus notices a trend that keeps happening. So he's sitting there for a while at the table of this prominent religious figure, and he's watching people enter the scene, walk into the table, and he is noticing every single person that walks in the front door is picking the most prominent seat of honor and plopping their tuchus right there on that seat. And so he is watching them seek out the seats of honor because they're walking in with their self-importance in their pride. And so Jesus can't hold his tongue, so he watches this happen, and so he decides to pause the meeting, pause the luncheon, to share a couple of stories in typical Jesus fashion. He's like, I'm noticing you guys coming in. Let's talk about a couple of fictional stories that hopefully you'll relate to. Now, these stories all deal with banquets or feasts or gatherings around food, which again, more foreshadowing because that's the next trilogy of stories references that as well. So he starts off with a story that we call the parable of the guests. I'm not going to read it, but I'll paraphrase it. This is basically the summary of the story. He's saying, when you're invited to a wedding feast, don't beeline to the seat of honor, because inevitably what's going to happen is someone more important is going to come after you and tell you to move. You're in their seat. And so you're going to be humiliated because you're not as important as you think you are. Someone's always more important than you. So his encouragement with this story is go to the cheap seats. Go to the nosebleeds. Go to the table that's right next to the men's room. Go to the place that no one else wants to sit, and sit there. And then here's the beauty. You will be moved forward. If you do that, you will actually be given a more prominent VIP seat if you seek out the humble seat. And so then this is where we get the famous statement in these verses, everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. He's laying some groundwork for us as we lead up to the parables in Luke 15. Then he turns to the hosts of the party, the guys who were inviting everyone to come and take these seats. And he says to them, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, don't invite your family and friends with the expectation of repayment, that you're going to give them the VIP seat, then when it's their turn to host, they're going to give you the VIP seat. You're not looking for, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing. And so he says, instead of that, invite the poor, the crippled, the blind, and invite the people that you would never want to invite because they can't repay you, they got nothing to give you, and you will then be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. And so imagine that. So they're thinking, so we're supposed to, instead of invite all the VIP guests and make this a social setting, a social scene, a country club kind of situation, we're supposed to invite the people that we passed on the way in here that we don't even look at, that are gross and that are crippled. And back then they believed if you're crippled, if you're lame, if you're blind, something going on, it's probably due to your own sin. So now these people are not physically disabled, they're also spiritually disabled, they're sinners. And so he's asking them to invite those folks as your VIPs, not these other people that you know and that you admire. So he shifts their focus to the big picture. He said, I want you to be heavenly minded. he says, this is the statement. You will be repaid for your decisions here, your sacrifices here, at the resurrection of the righteous. In other words, for eternity with me. And so this is where he says, blessed is everyone who will eat bread with me in the kingdom of God. So he is lifting their eyes, lifting their focus, trying to get them to think beyond just the immediate. The last one he shares is, we call it the parable of the dinner, their dinner guests. A man is giving a big dinner, and he invited a lot of people. And he sent his servant out to tell the invited guests that everything is ready to go. Your table is now ready, and come on in. And so every single person who was invited, who had a reservation, they made excuses why they're not going to come. And the Bible shares a few of the excuses. Jesus tells a story, and he says that some people said, I just bought land, and I need to go see it, like right now. Some people said, I bought oxen, and I have to go try them out. I have to go test drive my oxen. And one guy says, I just got married. Okay, cool. So they all cancel. And so then the person who's throwing the party says to his servant, I want you to go actually invite poor people and people who are crippled and people who are blind. I want you to go invite people who would be very appreciative of this dinner. And so then Jesus goes on to say of the people who were originally invited, none of those men who were invited shall taste of my dinner. It's a sobering story if you really get to the heart of what he's saying and who he's saying it to. He's telling these religious folks, you're going to miss it. He's telling these religious folks who are buying their own press, self-important, self-righteous, sanctimonious, top of the food chain, he's telling them, you're not invited. You're going to miss it. So Jesus' parables in Luke 14 are a response to what he is observing, and that is self-important, religious, self-righteous perspective, attitudes. And he's watching people take seats of honor, not inviting anyone who is undeserving to the table. And so he's calling that out. He's addressing that. And as I mentioned, these parables should serve to prepare us, our hearts and perspectives, for the next set of parables in Luke 15. And so as we get ready for the parables of lostness in Luke 15, what he's encouraging in us is humility. What he's encouraging in us is generosity, is sympathy and empathy, care and understanding. He's encouraging us to address and to drop our self-importance. And he is encouraging us to live a life of deference and the priority of including others, even those that we would normally disqualify, that we normally would have nothing to do with. The word parable is an ancient word that has a specific meaning, and that is, the meaning is to juxtapose or to put side by side in comparison. So a parable is a comparison. And so Jesus uses parables to compare. And what he's comparing is life as we know it and as we live it, life by the world's rules, and then how life really truly is. And that's why a lot of them, the lead-in is, the kingdom of God is like this. He says clearly, this is how it really is from God's point of view, God's perspective, God's heart. And then I'm going to compare that with your silly rules and your small, short-sighted perspective. And we're going to put them up next to each other. That's why they always feel a little odd. because he's confronting what makes sense to us, and he's instituting something that doesn't. So our priorities and our perspectives are being compared to his priorities and perspective. So we're used to invitations and seats of honor at parties going to the favored ones, the favored people, the important people. We're not shocked when the gregarious, popular person is invited and then somehow our invitation was lost in the mail. We get it. We understand that the VIP seating, that you get courtside seats at the Lakers, rest in peace. You get courtside seats at the Lakers who've gone home to be with Jesus this year. And so you get VIP seats not because you are someone feels sorry for you, but because socially you've earned it. You've got the social capital. You've got the money. You've got the juice to get it. And so those things go to the accomplished and the deserving. I'll take the back seat because I'm not that important. But that's not the way that God's kingdom works. In fact, within this same chapter, chapter 13, Jesus starts talking about this idea of the last are first, the least are greatest. It's just the way the kingdom of God works, even though it's upside down and countercultural to the way the world works. Ephesians 2, verses 8 and 9, by grace you've been saved through faith. It's not of yourselves. You did not do it. It's a gift of God. It's not a result of works so that no one may boast. In other words, your seat at the table has nothing to do with you. Nothing. These stories are speaking to the forever celebration that is the supper of the Lamb. That's why Jesus says, you're not going to eat bread with me in my kingdom in eternity. You're not going to make it. He's talking about a bigger picture, the supper of the Lamb. He's talking about his table, not the tables here, but he's also talking about gatherings here. He's also talking about the here and the now. He's talking about eternity. He's talking about the big picture. He's talking about forever, but he's also talking about what we do now. Jesus came to seek and to save that which is lost, to welcome the least, the last, and the lowest, and his encouragement is so should we. Fling the door open to the whosoevers that might even make you a little uncomfortable. The people that you differ with. Now, I'm going to just tap dance on your toes for just 4 seconds. I'm going to Michael Flatley river dance right on your little piggies. Such a weird thing to say. I'm sorry. I didn't think through that sentence. That's a silly sentence to say in church. But you'll forgive me. I'm the least and the last. In these days, it's pretty clear. We get the religious elite, and then you get the beggars, and you get the losers. It's easy to distinguish. Like, it's clear. He says the complaint in chapter 15 is you sit and eat, and you welcome sinners and tax collectors. Okay. Modern age, 2025 lingo, who's not a sinner? I mean, come on. We know, we got it. We think some people are worse sinners than we are. That's not real. We're all sinners. We all fall short. We're all wanting. We're all lacking. In 2025 lingo, what this looks like is I want to hang out and be a part of a community where everyone votes the way I vote. Cricket, cricket. Everyone agrees with me on this policy, this arena of life, this perspective. We're all on the same page. So it may not even be that we might have more grace for people as it comes to their life experience. But if you start talking about philosophically, it's like, whoa. But we all draw lines. We all compartmentalize. We can't help it. It's just the way that we are. It's humanity. Humanity's very tribal. And we draw those tribal lines based on the things that we think that's the deal breaker. And this is the confrontation of this parable, these parables, is you need to readdress that. You're saying some are welcome to the table and some aren't. What you're saying is, well, all are welcome, but you just can't sit next to me. I don't want to talk to you. This is meant to be confrontational. It's meant to address some things that we all carry in our hearts and our brains. How we interact with this world today. And the understanding is that the way we interact with the world today is really foreshadowing the forever celebration that we're all invited to. You're going to be shocked at who you're sitting next to in heaven. Let's get used to it now, and more than that, let's welcome them and invite them to be a part of it forever. So Jesus is driving home the importance of humility in these parables because it is the humble who get grace. God gives grace to the humble. And grace is our only path to the seats of honor that our hearts crave. That's the invitation. It's written in grace. It's the only way that anyone's going to get there because no one deserves to be there. Deep down, we all want to feel deserving. We all want the VIP seats, if we're honest. No one wants to be looked over. No one wants to be discounted or disrespected or unappreciated or picked last. Who's ever dealt with that trauma? Dodgeball, this is a silly story. I didn't plan on saying this, but I have a friend who works for Turner down in Atlanta. And he is a big wrestling fan. And he said, Chris, do you want to go to a wrestling event at Phillips Arena? I have the VIP box all to ourselves. Yes. The answer is yes. He said he lives in Marietta. He picked me up at my house in Marietta, and then we'll drive down in your car. I'll drive. And then I will let you park in my space, which is at Phillips Arena, like looking at it. So I got VIP parking. Then we went to our own skybox. Sweet. I kept looking at people. How are you? I hope I don't drop my beverage on your poor heads. I felt like Gladiator. It's like, it was ridiculous. I felt very important. And the truth is, I didn't pay one nickel. I paid gas. That's it. I didn't pay nothing. I didn't deserve to be there. It's not like the Turner family was welcoming me. This had nothing to do with me. I knew somebody. That's our seat at the table. It's not what you know, what you've done. It's who you know. Jesus is the one who made a way for you to be at the VIP table. Otherwise, we're not even at the kids' card table. We're outside looking in. These stories describe the kinds of people that Jesus prioritizes. In this story, we get a picture of the needy. He prioritizes the needy. Who wants to be in that category? Nobody. We hate being perceived as needy. Oh my gosh, that's like the worst thing. If someone got you a card, that just out of the blue, thanks for being needy, you would be so offended. You're the neediest person I know. We'd be like, oh my gosh, I got to rethink my whole life. Nobody likes admitting weakness. Nobody. Nobody wants to say to any other human, I'm not very good at this. I'm not doing great. In fact, we clam up. When we're going through stuff, most of us, we just clam up. We turtle. We'll even avoid human interaction because we don't want to talk about it. We don't like talking about our problems, and we sure as heck don't like asking for help. I'm the chief sinner here. I never ask for help, and it's stupid. Another story that I wasn't planning on saying, but I'll go and share it. We have a large fridge in the kitchen area. In fact, not that one. It was one before that broke for some reason, and I'm probably going to tell you exactly why. I picked it up at Lowe's, and they graciously put it in my truck for me. So I drove down the interstate with a fridge just, in my truck, showed up here, and didn't want to ask anybody to help me. So I tried my best to lower a giant fridge out of my truck onto the ground. Stupid. I dropped the fridge. Ka-kung! I'm surprised I didn't crack the patio. I did break the little wood dolly. I shattered it, broke the wheel right off because I dropped a fridge on it. The fridge stopped working shortly thereafter. I have no idea why. I think it was a manufacturer's defect. I don't buy that brand. But I dented that thing. It was ridiculous, and all because I couldn't ask for help. Silly. I would be frustrated if you told me that story. I would be like, why didn't you call me? But me telling a story, I'm like, of course I didn't call you. It's just me. We don't like asking for help. We don't like being in the category of the needy. But let me share, this is a great quote. I got a couple of great Robert Capon quotes for you today, and this is first of them. I've shared this one before. Grace doesn't sell. You can hardly even give it away because it works only for losers, and no one wants to stand in that line. Grace is for losers. And who wants to be assigned that title? This is my realization with the parables. If you don't feel confronted by them in some way personally, if you don't take a parable personally and feel a little awkward and confronted by them, you're probably not reading it right. Jesus' parables are not Aesop's fables. They're not little life lessons like, try this. They're not sermon illustrations. Jesus is trying to help us locate the infection. I just had a root canal last week. That was a lot of fun. Your prayer life increases greatly when they're drilling into your throat. I went to my dentist couldn't do it, so I had to go to some specialist and all this stuff. And so he's making sure he has the right tooth, which I'm very grateful for. So he's poking and prodding, tapping. He's putting liquid nitrogen on my teeth to see if it's, I feel it. And you feel that? Like my tongue's frozen. Yes, I got it. But he's tapping. He's trying to find where the problem is. That's what parables do. Parables are helping us locate the infection. The infection of our humanity and our selfishness and our greed and our pride and all the things that make us human. He's trying to help us locate those things so that he can do a root canal. This is my second and last quote from Robert Capon, Robert Capon, Episcopal priest. He's passed away several years ago, but he was really outside the box, brilliant mind, great heart, wrote some really fun, wacky books. I will say this, he's greater in quotes than he is reading his books. I've had more than one person tell me, why did you recommend that? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with you recommending that to me? Steve said that to me. Anyway, so don't ask me for recommendations in books. But he wrote it's actually 3 books, and they've published them as one big book. I've read it twice now. It is about the parables of God, of Jesus. And so it's dynamic. Parables of the Kingdom, I think the whole book is called. But it really addresses all the parables and Jesus' heart in them. And so this is a quote speaking about parables from Robert Capon. He said this: "Parables are told only because they are true, not because the actions of the characters in them can be recommended for imitation. Good Samaritans are regularly sued. Fathers who give parties for wayward sons are rightly rebuked. Employers who pay equal wages for unequal work have labor relations problems. Any shepherd who makes a practice of leaving 99 sheep to chase after a lost one quickly goes out of the sheep ranching business. The parables are only true because they are like what God is like, not because they are models for us to copy. It is simply a fact that the one thing that we dare not under any circumstances imitate is the only thing that can save us. The parables are, one and all, about the foolishness by which grace raises the dead. They apply to no sensible process at all, only to the divine insanity that brings everything out of nothing." It's a brilliant quote, and it is dead on, exactly true. The parables are not meant to be imitated. They're not some story for us to straighten up and fly right. In fact, the subject matter of the parables, only in the negative sense, are about us. Jesus is saying, stop putting the weight on you, and I want you to put the focus, the emphasis on me. It's not meant to make you a better version of yourself. It's to get you outside of yourself and look to Jesus. So Jesus is telling story after story after story that is meant to communicate that we all fall short. We all have falling shorts. We all miss the mark. We're all way off. The parables are not, hey, Chris, a little tweak and you're going to be money. No, Chris, you're not even in the right state right now. Not only we're not on the same page, you're in the wrong book. Jesus is telling story after story after story to confront the reality that we're way off. We all desperately need grace. That's the bottom line. We need grace. And thank God, through Christ, we get it. Now, these stories do also address another issue that along the way, there's going to be a lot of people who realize and recognize and wake up to the reality that they need grace. And these stories also communicate that there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that never really acknowledge and accept that reality. There's two types of people in this world, and no, it's not sinners and saints. It is those who realize they're sinners and those who think that they're saints. Those who accept and acknowledge that our only hope is God's grace, and those who think they can do it in their own strength. Those who refuse to line up in the line of the losers because they can't quite admit and acknowledge that they're just as bad and as broken as the people in that line. That's what these stories are confronting. Here's how the prodigal son story ends. Spoiler alert. The father says to the older brother, his eldest son, who is pretty self-righteous and sanctimonious, and refuses to be categorized and even found at the same table as his sinful, licentious, naughty loser of a brother. He won't even go in the same house as this guy. He's so much better than. And the father says this: "It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is now alive. He was lost and he is now found." What we're going to discover in these controversial parables is that where we're actually better off, to quote a great John Cusack movie from the 80s, we're better off dead. We're better off lost. The winner in the Good Samaritan story is not the sanctimonious and the self-righteous. The one who benefits the most is the dead guy in the ditch. That's where you are rescued and that's where you're redeemed. In these stories that we're about to talk about, the beneficiary, the one who reaps the benefits, the one that the party's thrown over, is the lost one who was found. You're better off lost. You're better off dead. In fact, the lost and the dead are the ones who get the VIP seats at the table. In his stories, Jesus describes blind people, lame people, beggars, poor people. He says, those are the people that are going to get the seats of honor, not you, not the spiritually together. Why is that? Because the spiritually together have no need of grace. And grace is the ticket. The greatest place where we can be in our spiritual journey is understanding how desperately we need grace. There's a lot of religious institutions, there's a lot of religious people who will communicate this idea that what you're working for is basically to become less needy in the eyes of God, to become self-sufficient, mature Christians. There's no worse place that we could ever find ourselves. To live a life where we feel like we have it so together that Jesus can spend his time with the more needy. That is, there's a wonderful scene in the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where they're going the wrong direction on an interstate and someone rolls down their window and says, "You're going the wrong way." That is the reality when we feel like we are self-sufficient Christians. You're going the wrong way. What we're going to find in these parables, and we'll talk about next week, is that these are all meant to show us that we have one hope, and it's not ourselves. It is that we are lost without him, and thank God we're not without him. We are the rescued. We will from now until the end of time be the rescued. We are in desperate need of his amazing saving grace, and we have no recourse without it. There's never a time where we graduate to a place of self-sufficiency. We were always going to be completely dependent on the saving power that pulls everything out of nothing, that rescues the lost, and that revives and restores the dead. I want to pray with you, if you would just join me. I want to make an invitation to you. If you're here and you say, "Chris, I need the rescue,"